Welcome back to another episode of the Take Your Shot podcast. Today I've got Gail Fraser on, and I am so excited for today's conversation. Gail, welcome aboard. Do you mind telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So, as Hallie mentioned, I am the founder of Work Simple and your operations fairy godmother. I help creatives, especially in the wedding industry, build better backend systems and leverage automation in a not scary, not impersonal way so that you can show up as vibrantly as possible in and beyond your business.
I love that. Do you mind walking us through a little bit about how you kind of got into this space?
Yes, I fell into systems by accident. So until very recently, I had undiagnosed ADHD. And growing up, I just had to put systems in place for myself to stay on track in school and stay on track in work. And when I got into the corporate world, I found myself just endlessly frustrated by all of the administrative BS that you have to go through in corporate and being like, why is this so clunky? Why does this take forever? As someone whose brain hates an administrative task, anytime I was put on something that was super clunky, I was like, I'm not going to do it this way, but I'll fix it. And so I built up systems through a variety of roles in recruiting and clinical and research and project management and a bunch of different jobs, quote unquote. But everything I did was just fixing their processes to get up to speed with how my brain works. And as a result, that helped my team because things were more automated. None of us had to do the tedious admin or do things the slowest way anymore. And it made our team more efficient. It made our work better. And it made me not lose my mind. And now I get to do that for creatives instead of corporate. And that just makes me happy too.
That's seriously so relatable. And I feel like, too, so many people have an element of just reduced attention span, whether it's ADHD, and formally like that, or it's just, I think our brains are so used to things being made more simple, shorter. I mean, we can only focus for so much, and it takes one text or one interruption for the whole day to just go off course, in my opinion.
Yes.
Oh, I went on to Facebook to check this thing. Oh, there goes 2 hours. Systems are so important, and especially the less you can have on your plate that requires your attention, the more you can actually focus on time that makes sense for you to be using your brain for. So why not automate the rest,
Yeah. And I find a lot with my clients, and you probably relate to this in your business at some point, of a lot of the stuff that I end up coming in to automate is stuff that in your head is just super quick and easy. Oh, responding to this email, I already know what I'm going to say. I say basically the same thing every time. And I'm just let's just template that. And then you never have to send that again. Then it doesn't have to take up any of your energy, any of your creative energy. And it's also not impersonal because it's what you were going to send anyway.
Totally. Also, too, I like that point of just the quick and easy because you're so right. I mean, I kind of feel like this is a pain point sometimes in my marriage where it's Luke will do this and this and this and all these little things. And it was taken away from this actually impactful task that needed to get done. And I've been saying it over and over. I'm like, Luke, the little things add up. The little things add up. Yeah, it's only 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there. But when you think about the grand scheme of things, it's taking you away from the most important tasks. I don't really care about these 5 little things. That can happen any day. But when it's the most important things are those things. And sometimes I think we use those little tasks to get us out of having to work on the big scary task. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a procrastination tactic where we're thinking we're being productive because oh, I sent 5 emails. And then when it comes to the thing you need to do, it's well, I didn't do that, but you still felt like you were, productive. It's tricking you into productivity with these easy little things.
Totally. And for me with ADHD, sometimes that and sometimes also the opposite, which is I dread an email follow-up that's going to take me a minute and a half for 3 days straight. And I'm just well, if that was automated, then I wouldn't have had to spend all of my energy dreading doing that 1.5 minute task.
Literally. Yeah, and I don't know. I remember when I was working in corporate, there was kind of this like 5 minute rule. Like if you're walking past something that needs to get done or this needs to happen, like just if it's 5 minutes or less, just do it. But I think if we're training ourselves to just like do it because it's such a short task. Again, if we're not remembering, oh wait, I could automate this, I could make this easier, and then really focus on other bigger things. Like there's kind of
Hmm.
this shift we need to take, this shift that needs to happen, and I think that's a difference between our generations, right? So anyway, just kind of on the topic too of generations, like I know too, we're also serving, and I'm sure a lot of your clients are like serving like a new generation. And I know right
Hmm.
now the big topic is like Gen Z, like what are they about, right? Like duh duh duh, kind of scary, like nobody knows. But what has your experience been like with like shifts in the market and shifts in just like communication that you are seeing with your clients and who they're serving?
It's funny because I am like, technically, I'm Gen Z, like, I'm right on the cusp. And so I really see things from both sides because I get a lot of content from my clients or people in my network who are like, Gen Z is like ghosting and they have no patience and they have like whatever, people complaining about the Gen Z wedding market. Um, and then also as a Gen Z myself, I'm just like, well, yeah, I'm not waiting 24 hours for a response. In Gen Z terms, like we grew up with technology, like we grew up with automation and smartphones and just like tech in our hands. And so I think that this generation, more than any generation before it, is expecting automation and expecting that your business seems very tech savvy because they are as a generation. And so they can really spot it. And I noticed this with things like websites or just general workflows, like email workflows. If you're still manually sending out that, like, especially first email from the inquiry, then you're missing out on leads because they are expecting to get more information right away because that's how their generation has always had it. And so I also really see things from that perspective of my own experience of being like, well, yeah, like I don't expect to wait around if I like click to see more information on something.
Totally. And okay, that's an interesting point too, because it's kind of like I feel like people are dancing around a lot of like the automation thing because there's like, I would say one of the big myths I'm seeing is people don't want it to feel like it's less human or it's not
Hmm.
authentic. And so, especially in this world where AI, we're kind of on that like AI ramp, right? Like things are just really ramping up, things are really taking off. And I think a lot of people are also kind of like craving that authenticity too, where they
Yeah.
just like don't want things to feel inauthentic or not real. So, are there any things that you're finding that help with that balance of quick, tech savvy, very much like automated responses, but not losing the human side of things? Like, where do you think the balance is? And maybe you can talk more about like what you recommend in terms of like, let's just use this like initial inquiry follow up as a good example. Like, what would you like walk someone through?
Yes. My stance, I am in automation first, AI as needed, systems person. Because to your point, I think there's a lot of AI fatigue and reasonable criticisms of AI, but I think that we're really tired of seeing AI content, engaging with AI emails and chatbots, and like I'm tired of it. And so I think we're seeing that a lot in the market too. And while, yes, there are a lot of AI tools that can like write and respond to your emails, you probably see it in your inbox when you're going to respond to an email. Like Google does that now. It'll send like pop up an AI that email that it thinks you want to send. And I think we're really tired of it. And that's the part that feels really inhuman and disconnected. But to my point before, I think that automation is almost the reverse of that. Like you get the benefit of not having to do it, but it's still the email that you wrote you would send. And the way that I like to frame it, especially for my creative clients who are more resistant to automation or the term automation, have this kind of scary connotation to it or impersonal connotation, is that if you send the same email 12 times a week, basically, like you're typing out You get a new inquiry. Hey, thank you so much for inquiring. I look forward to hearing more. Let's set up a call. Maybe you have a booking link. Maybe you don't, and you're sending those emails back and forth, and that is time wasted as well. But if you're sending that email, it's kind of a template anyway, because you have that template in your head. It's just not written down anywhere. And that's those little things adding up like we were talking about before. But make it a template and then put it in that sequence. And not only is your client then getting the email at the right time always, because if you're a wedding professional, you're like getting an inquiry on a Saturday during busy season, you're not responding to it right away. You're not available. But your system can be. Your system will always send it out at the right time. And it doesn't automate you out of your business. There will always be follow-ups and individual things that you talk about and email back and forth with your clients about. But those key points that you're sending the same email to every client, it should just be a templated email that's being sent to every client.
Totally. And like, okay, let's talk about the inquiry response, because I think so often, if you're fine with talking about weddings specifically, there's a lot of like opinions on this, right? And I don't think there's like one right or wrong. I think it really depends on who you're serving, the market you're in, what works best for you and your business, price point. Like there's so many different things, right? I'd say the biggest thing that a lot of people are trying to navigate is, do I send my pricing in the response, or do I wait and do it more custom after we hop on a call, or somewhere in between? And so when people are kind of like responding, what would you say are, for Gen Z, for example, like what are some of those key pieces of information that they need that are really helpful up front? Like, do they need the full pricing right away, or is a price range okay? Do they want to even hop on a call? I mean, you inform us. Like, you're the expert. You're the one who kind of like sees this. What are you finding in terms of like automating that response? Like, what's been most helpful for your clients?
Yes. So 2 things that I am seeing in the market are Gen Z. Price transparency is super important to Gen Z. That goes beyond the wedding industry. I mean, I used to work in HR, and just a few years ago, LinkedIn made it required to have salary range posted on jobs because of the push from Gen Z. Like, I'm not going to apply if I don't know what I'm making. And that translates to every aspect of our economy as well. So that translates to big purchases like wedding investments, wedding vendors. And so I think Gen Z really values having that price transparency. And myself, having planned my own wedding last year, I reached out to some photographers that I was like, I saw them on Instagram. They were so cool. They had no pricing listed on their website. And then they were like double my budget. And so I wasn't going to be a lead for them anyway. Like, I wasn't even a real lead because I was never going to be able to afford their services with my budget. And so I think that the first thing is, I'm seeing a lot of push, even in the luxury market, to have a starting price on your website. If you offer packages, even if your packages come with add-ons, to just put like a starting price or a price range. And that can help narrow your leads to make sure that they're actually good leads. They're leads that want to pay for your services and can afford your prices. And because that does have to align. And then in your inquiry process, so they already have that starting range expectation from the website. I see one of the things that I think is going to be more common and more helpful with Gen Z is like a welcome packet or like an information packet in that first email. Gen Z loves information and informed decision making, and especially in this economy where money is tighter than ever for a lot of couples and a lot of people in general. We're taking our time to make these big purchases and these big decisions. And the more information we have, the more confident and comfortable we are spending that money. Gen Z is also used to being advertised to because we're advertised to constantly, all of us are, through our phones. And so having information about your services and what working with you is like and what it's going to feel, what I want you to feel like on your wedding day, especially for a photographer, you can put all your pretty images on like a 3-page sheet that walks through like, here's a client testimonial and here's some of that stuff. I think those are going to start becoming really popular in that first email because you're getting your client excited about your services before they're even having the call with you. And so those are really the two things that I'm seeing most are like having a starting price. If you don't have them on your website or you're anti having them on your website for some reason, definitely have starting prices in that welcome packet or have some kind of like package price expectation. If you do fully custom pricing, which I know some photographers do, give a range of what to expect or a few different ranges of if you're having a micro wedding, here's what you might expect to spend. If you're having a 300 person Indian wedding that's like 3 days long, like here's what you might expect to spend. I think that just having that information available is going to be really valuable.
Totally. And, it's always about giving them the right information at the right time. And I think the old school method has been just hold back your pricing, get them on a call, really sell them on the value, and then make your pitch. And I don't know, it's been so interesting because I've seen it both ways. And I've been like, I don't know, able to book $15,000 packages doing it that way, right? But when we're seeing this transition to Gen Z, it's like, oh man, like it's a little bit harder to get people onto that call. And so that transparency piece I've been finding has been working a little bit better right now. So we're also in that transition where, you have to decide too, like, who is your client? Like, is it Gen Z? Is it a millennial? Like, what is it that you're, really trying to pitch and who are you trying to pitch it to? That matters. So it's like, you shouldn't switch everything to Gen Z if that's not your client.
Totally.
I just thought this was like just such an interesting conversation because I think a lot of people are really feeling that shift and trying to figure out, okay, like, is this kind of aligned with me to like make changes in my processes like that? So anyway, super interesting.
I think as a photographer, and I say this with social media too, as someone whose work is very not visual, I'm like, you can take advantage of all of those opportunities, like having a welcome packet and showcasing all of your beautiful photos. Those are things that are going to really sell.
Yeah. And it also, like, if you're giving them something of value too. So let's say in there you could have examples of, I don't know, whether it's just like not just your work, but also, hey, if you're getting married, like here's what a timeline could look like, and really educating them on like an 8-hour versus 10 or 12-hour. That's something that you can like serve them and help prime them. So then going into the, consult call, maybe you're not telling them exactly your pricing, but they're already thinking like, oh man, I think I will want the 10 or 12-hour versus like 8 just doesn't feel like enough. So that's another thing too, where if you can get them information that gets them thinking about the things that will play a factor into their decision and like guiding them in that, that could also be a strategic thing. So yeah, so
Totally.
many fun things.
I love it.
I love it too. Okay, do you want to walk us through some of the other things that you have found really helpful to automate for people? Like maybe whether it's like part of their, regular process, or where do you see people saving the most like time in their business or even just like mental capacity?
There are a few different areas that I like to focus on in my business. There's the client onboarding. So that's the inquiry, lead response sequence, your documents, so your like proposals, contracts, things like that. That's the most time saving because especially when we're thinking about calls, if you have a booking tool, whether that's internal to your CRM or something like Calendly, that's already going to be a time saver. And if you don't have a tool like that because you don't think you need it, you do. It's just going to be like a game changer. But saving time through that sequence, because the lead follow-ups, especially, and I hear it at every networking event that I go to for weddings, is ghosting is like at an all-time high. And we all are sensitive people who want to book these clients. And when they ghost us, we get a little bit sad. And so it also takes a little bit of our sensitivity out of that process because we're not the ones doing the active responding. Our tool's doing that. And then the ones that are interested in moving forward continue to move forward with you. And those are the ones that you get to meet and spend your energy on and heart on. So it's really that inquiry email sequence through the booking, contract, that first meeting proposal, that takes up a ton of time, especially the template. Like if you don't have super solid templates for your proposals, your invoices, I know that you're a Dubsado girly. And so having a tool like that with a ton of capability, I see a ton of people who pay for Dubsado and then don't have any templates set up or have like one base template, but they have to edit it so much for every client that it takes so much time. So that client onboarding piece is what I see being the biggest time saver. But I think another big piece that people don't think about as much, especially in the wedding industry, is client offboarding. So in the wedding industry, we think about, okay, the wedding day is the big day. And then as a photographer, you're doing a gallery delivery at some point after the wedding. And then you kind of just disappear for the client and vice versa. Like it's like, okay, we did this thing and we had this special moment together and then nothing. But you can really add value back into your business by having an email sequence after the client's gallery has been delivered, asking them to leave you a review on Google, which boosts your SEO and your visibility to other ideal clients that are looking for you. You can encourage them to refer you out to other people who they know that are engaged, because chances are if they loved having you as their wedding photographer, they're going to want to recommend you to everyone. Similarly, they're going to want to leave a review. I hear people all the time who are like, I feel so awkward sending this. They liked your work. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, Hallie was amazing. You should have her for your wedding. We had so much fun. We really felt like we connected. And that's going to help inform future leads about whether or not they want to work with you. And so client offboarding is not necessarily the time saver, but it's the one that I see being skipped that can add a lot of value to their business.
Exactly. And honestly, too, it's like you just served a group of people who, it's not just the couple that you're serving, you're also serving their bridal party, their family, like their closest people. And when you do a really good job, then it just naturally leads to a lot of, more work. So It's like a funnel right there. And if you're not tapping into that or, having some sort of referral program or way to continue to serve them. And even too, it's just like, I always get them onto my email list after we kind of close out their project with their wedding. I don't want to bombard them with like mini session emails when they just had engagement photos and stuff. But once they're actually off of my like, okay, we've been delivered, like you've got your wedding photos, like you've graduated, then I'll get them onto my email list. And I think that's a place where you can really like continue to serve them or have them like be in the know of like a newsletter. So I'm sure there's ways that you've like automated processes like that. But yeah, I do agree that the offboarding process and just like that client retention in some capacity, just to stay top of mind, like as well, is just so easy to just like, it's a low hanging fruit. Like, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you're, a lot of wedding photographers also do like family photography or like maternity, newborn. If your clients are getting married and then like a percentage of them are also planning to have children, and you also do maternity photo shoots and newborn photo shoots and things, like being present, whether that's through an email list or having an email that gets sent out a year after their wedding, being like, hey, remember this day? We had so much fun. And I hope you have a great 1-year anniversary. That can be an automated email. That doesn't feel impersonal, but it's like a check-in where they're kind of like reminded that you're there if they want to come back to you for any other photography of their life.
Exactly. And yeah, just staying top of mind for all of that is just so important. It's like, I think people think, oh, I'm just doing their wedding and then that's it. But there's so much more. And I'll be honest, it's not something that I really focus on. I don't really spend a ton of time focusing on, maternity or newborn or family. It's maybe a shift I might make in the next several years, but really niche down like my marketing too. Like my outward facing marketing is very much like weddings, but internally it's like, yeah, that's what my email list is for. So once you offboard them and get them, graduated from weddings and onto your email list, just a great way to just continue serving. So yeah.
Totally.
Okay, so let's walk through a little bit of like the work you do. So I know you help people set up systems, and I know a lot of people are probably in this phase of, do I need systems or do I need a virtual assistant? Do you want to talk through kind of what you have seen and kind of what you recommend and when?
Totally. I think this is something I see a lot as a systems expert of people being like, I am overwhelmed. I'm going to hire a virtual assistant, which isn't necessarily wrong or a bad idea. A virtual assistant can be helpful at any stage in your business. But what I see happen a lot is that people hire a virtual assistant or a part-time employee, and now they're suddenly more overwhelmed because now, in addition to doing all of this work that was overwhelming before, they have to train someone, they have to get someone up to speed on their processes that probably aren't written down. They are basically using this person to not their fullest potential, and they're spending a lot more energy to be able to delegate out to this virtual assistant. And so that's where I think systems can almost be a good supplement before you have a virtual assistant. Because if you have your systems built out, you have like SOPs or templates, documentation of like, here's how I do things here, and those automations already built out, then your money goes a lot further with your virtual assistant, because they can be doing like the follow-ups that can't be automated. They can be doing a lot more of the in-depth business, like backend internal work that just goes along with having a business, instead of you hiring someone on and them being like, wait, what do I do? And asking you a million questions all the time. Having those systems in place and good documentation or good templates or both. And that's something that like someone like me can help set up, so that when you do hire a virtual assistant, and I see this with a lot of my clients that go from working with me, we finish our project, they hire somebody to help them support their business, but then that person's set up for a lot more success. They're going to feel more satisfied in their job because they're going to feel like they know what to do and they know how to help you, and you're going to be more satisfied with the value that you're getting for the money that you're paying for another virtual assistant or an employee.
That's so good. And honestly, I have experienced that myself. A couple of years ago, I had a virtual assistant for a season of life. And, I realized like as I had this assistant, we were still building a lot of the systems out. And part of it helped me build the systems. But, over time, I was like, man, like we could have really saved a lot of time and questions and headache had we built the systems first. So I want to echo exactly what Gail is saying. And just if you are really feeling overwhelmed and you haven't taken first a look at your systems, I think that's really a great place to start. And so for people who maybe haven't taken that step to really evaluate where they could implement systems, if someone was to do a quick audit on their processes, how would you recommend them going through that? Like, where should they start, and like what types of questions should they be asking themselves?
That's such a good question. So I offer an audit. So if you want someone to hold your hand through it and give professional recommendations, you can work with a professional like myself. But if you are looking at your own internal systems and being like, okay, how can I make this better? The first thing that I do in my audits is have my clients make a bullet pointed list. So I think people get really overwhelmed by the idea of documentation of like a standard operating procedure. An SOP has to be this like big document that has all of the different steps and everything's written out. And like as an ADHD person, I'm like, I don't even want to read that. Like I get overwhelmed thinking about having to create it, having to read it. And you don't have to do that. Bullet pointed list. I do this in this tool, I do this in this tool, I do this, I send this email, I hop on this call for 30 minutes, I do this, and jot down like what your base steps are for every client and what tool you're doing them in. So if you have a CRM, a lot of those are going to be lumped together into like, I do 90% of these steps in Dubsado. Maybe I meet via Zoom or Google Meet, but like those are still being sent out via my booking. And so the first place you can look is, can I consolidate my tools? I think, especially if you're a newer business owner, you're probably using a bunch of different free tools to get the job done, which is great because it's free and it's a good place to start. But you get to a point in your business where that's really overwhelming and you can afford, you start to be able to afford consolidating some of those tools so that everything's in one place, which is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. And so that's the first thing, is like figuring out, can I consolidate my tools anywhere? And the second thing is like looking at the things that you do over and over again for every client, the emails that you send over and over, whether that's that like lead inquiry or here's your proposal. And the first step is, can I template it? Can I just like, even if I don't know where or how to automate it, or I'm not comfortable with automating it because I'm worried about losing the personal touch, can I template it? Because that's still going to save me time. And then can I practice using my templates? Because if you create the systems and you don't practice them, you're not going to change how you do things and you're going to stay overwhelmed. So it does come with some change, willingness to change, but also, okay, I took one little baby step. I made a template for this one email and now I'm going to practice using it. I'm going to get good at it. So it's second nature. And then maybe you'll work up to a point where you're like more comfortable with automation in general, or figuring out like, I know how to do this now. So those are the places that I would start. If you're thinking about, okay, my systems are a mess, I'm going to fix that this year, that's a good place to start.
And I think that really is a good place to start. And I love how you laid it out, because if you're not comfortable with automating it, I think at the very least what you were saying about just coming up with a template, making it easier for yourself, that's still in its own way a type of system, right? Like you're able to, have a template and that's a part of your system, and then slowly come to automation as you feel comfortable. But it's really just like exercising that muscle. And I think asking the question, how can I make this easier for myself, especially around those tasks that you're maybe avoiding? And like, for example, if the emails are just sitting there because you are like, I don't want to sit and like respond to these for the next hour. Well, what if it didn't take you an hour, right? Like, what if it didn't take you an hour to clear your inbox? And what if you could have just like click a click button and it's the same response, but you just get to tailor it towards that message? Like, that is where these can be really life-changing for people. And I know for me personally, like, my life has been completely changed by having systems in place. And, there's always ways to improve. And there's some audits that I'm going to be doing in different parts of my processes, as I'm always looking for ways to improve and, be more efficient. But, just with the steps that you can take, even just starting at a minimum. I remember the first time we put together systems and I look back and I'm like, oh man, like I'm always asking myself the question, why didn't I do this sooner? I think that's the biggest regret people have around it,
And I think that's some of it. I want to invite people listening to give themselves grace if they feel that way about decisions they've made in their business that have benefited them, because you're also so busy. There are a million things to do as a business owner. I always say there's always something you can be doing better, and that doesn't mean that you're doing things wrong now. There are a million things that we could be doing better in our business if we had unlimited time, unlimited budget, etc. You're doing the best with what you've got, and you're learning as you go. And we all are.
I think that's so good. And, I would love to talk. I know you brought up tools, consolidating tools. I know there's some tools that you really like using. Do you want to talk through, what tools you find helpful, and like if someone's going to pare down their toolkit, what to really look for?
Yes. So there are 2 CRMs that I recommend for photographers specifically. So HoneyBook is a common one, and Dubsado. And I think the decision point for me between the two, as someone who's worked in both, is that HoneyBooks does a really good job of making your proposals and your contracts, and it's very easy to do that. And it comes at a little bit higher price point. Dubsado comes at a little bit lower price point, And I know that they're planning on rolling out a brand suite. You can make things branded and pretty. It just takes a little bit more work right now in Dubsado. But again, you're getting it at that lower price point. And honestly, the things that they've rolled out in like the new Dubsado is, I think that their user interface is a lot better. They have booking, which is really important. And so I think those two tools are really comparable in what they're capable of. And if you don't have a CRM and you're listening and you're like, what is that? Why do I need that? Basically, it's a place where you can have your client portal, all your client communications, invoicing, proposals, payments, all in one place. So if you're a newer business owner, you're probably doing those all over the map. And this is one place that you can consolidate. The next thing that I see that a lot of creatives don't think is important, or they have buy their CRM and then they're like, wait, why am I still disorganized? is CRMs are historically terrible at task management. They're client relationship manager. They are for managing your leads, your projects, and your payments from those projects. They all have some kind of task system built in. And if you're a whiz at automating, you can MacGyver that to make it a pretty good tool. But if you are like not at that point, you could probably benefit from having a project management tool. The one that I like is ClickUp, and I have a tool that is a ClickUp for wedding photographers. So it is a specific template that is created specifically for wedding photographers, that every time you have a new client, you can create a new list from this template and put in the client's wedding date. If you offer an engagement session with your wedding package, put in some of those key dates, and it will automatically tell you when everything is due and gives you a really good high-level view across clients. That's what a lot of these tools really struggle with. So that's what I always say to look for with a tool. I know that I love Notion because it's pretty, but it does a really bad job of giving you a high-level view across clients. And if you're managing multiple clients, if you are someone who's taking on a wedding every weekend during busy season, it's really important that you're able to see, okay, big picture across everything that I've got going on. What do I need to do today? What do I need to do tomorrow? What do I need to do to get me through this week? And ClickUp and this template that I've got coming out is a great way to have that all in one place.
I love how you brought this up too, because I think so often our to-do lists live in our head or on like a sticky note or someplace where it can just be lost or just taking up too much mental space. And so we actually use ClickUp as well. We've been using it for years, and I love it because I'm able to have my tasks for Take Your Shot as well as for my photography business and videography. And so having something that kind of like helps separate out those different areas of your brain, I think is super helpful. I have a friend who literally, and we actually had a whole episode on this, if I can link it below, but like they use Asana, that's like their task management tool, and they use it for like things like chores around the house. Like they systemized their life, and we're going to have to do this maintenance thing on our home these months of the year, or set up this appointment and all the things. So I just think it's so interesting how a system doesn't have to be just for business. It can also be for your life. And when you have tools like this, like ClickUp, that you can really create the different spaces and have it really function in a way where it's like telling you, kind of at that high level, like this is what I need to do today, and kind of segment that out. So helpful. I love it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like, don't get me wrong, my whole other screen over here is like covered in Post-it notes. So I am like, I'm the biggest offender of the things that I talk about not doing. But having one place where I can go and put things that have deadlines, and it's saying like, hey, today you need to do this, is super helpful for my brain. And also it just gives me like a little tunnel vision when I get on like a rabbit hole and I'm like, wait, what was I supposed to be doing today? And it's one place to go. And I like that you brought up Asana. I think that Asana is also a really user-friendly option. ClickUp, I think, can be overwhelming for people who are starting, which is why I recommend starting with a template. I offer also a free template on my website. And so that's just more high level general, but it's a really great option and it has a free forever plan. So I'm also on a paid version of it, but you can get started on a free version that if you get the functionality you need out of it, that's one place to just like put all your stuff. It has a phone widget so you can like add tasks right from your phone. I recommend downloading the app. If you're a Mac user, you can have it in full screen all the time, just running in the background, and you can like 3-finger swipe back and forth. And my recommendation always is just like make it as easy as possible to access your tools, because otherwise you'll forget that they exist or not use them.
That couldn't be more true because I know for me, it's like I have so many ideas written all over the place. And I do that on purpose because I just know when I'm like, even just in this podcast episode, I've got, my whole, this is how my brain works, just to, I want to circle back to this idea. Or
You're like murder board.
I know, literally. Yeah. And so I have a whole pile of these, like, just whatever. And I think that also helps me stay focused when I'm listening to a training online, or just I'm a constant learner. I'm learning on my podcast. I'm leading things. Like there's so many stuff, and our brains can only handle so much. So it's like, I like to have it live on these lists, but then I translate it to, okay, time to get it off this piece of paper. It's out of my brain. Now it's onto like an action task, or I'm going to chew on this later. Like there's different places you can have it live in ClickUp, or in any task management, or even just I know people that use like the Notes app. Like that's a great thing too. But walk us through kind of like when you set up a, automation or, ClickUp, what is it that it's doing when you have like something like this template? Like what is it kind of setting them up to do?
Yes. So one of the benefits of this template and most of the things that I set up for my wedding clients specifically. So I've worked with like wedding planners, stationery designers, and wedding photographers primarily, where you have kind of a package. Like, here's what I offer, and here are the base things that I need to do for every client. And even at the package level for a photographer, those don't necessarily differ a ton. If it's like an 8-hour package versus a 12-hour package, the steps are more or less the same, but having the dependencies, so it's called dependencies in ClickUp, but where you can have the dates be relative to each other. So having a task that's a wedding date and having that date in there, and then all of the other tasks are connected to that date, so that when you save it as a template and then you put in the right wedding date, it automatically dates everything of, okay, and in 2 days I send the sneak peeks, and in a week I send a follow-up email, and then in like 4 weeks or 8 weeks, I send the gallery, then I send this review email. Even having those listed out and auto dated, because also if you have a lot of tasks, we've done this for wedding planners too. I'm planning to launch a template for them as well this year, but it's a lot bigger because they have like often 12 plus months of tasks and a lot going on. But having like 12 months of tasks, really overwhelming, first of all. But going in and putting in due dates for 12 months of tasks, I would rather die. Like and that's why that's one of the reasons why most people don't have good systems in place, is because they're like, well, that sounds like a lot of work and I'm not going to do that. It's easier if I write it down on a Post-it note, or it's easier if I send a voice note to my assistant, or it's easier if I do X, Y, and Z. And so that's why I find that in ClickUp, especially with these templates, being able to have those relative dates where it's like, I enter a date, I click use template, it populates in my thing, I change the name of my client, like Morgan and Kelsey's wedding, and put in their wedding date, and then boom, the things will show up as they're due on my like, what do you have to do today list, instead of like me having to create a new list for them and having to create all of these things manually every time and then put in all the due dates for everything, because you're not going to do that.
Yeah. And it's honestly, it feels like this whole overhaul and kind of like, I've been functioning without it, so why do I need it? And so it's like you do have to take that step to the side to just kind of like, okay, let's pause, let's evaluate, let's implement this. And then it really helps you speed up just where you're going and how you get there. So I think that's just super wise. So everyone listen to Gail, listen to everything she's saying. This is such good wisdom. And, we've talked through so much in this podcast, and I think that you've just offered so much great nuggets and resources and things like that. For people who are listening and want to work with you, where can they find you? And I know you talked a little bit about it, but what are some of the things that you currently offer?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at worksimple.io or at my website, worksimple.io. So it's really easy to remember. I have all of my services listed there. I am currently booking system sprints. So that's 1 week to fix your most hated workflow. So if we talked about some of the things that you're like, oh, I need to upgrade that in my business, client onboarding, client offboarding, reviews and referral management, things like that. Those are something that we can get done in 1 week. So you can really go into busy season feeling really confident about getting those timely responses to Gen Z. I also mentioned that I do operations audits. So if you are like, I am overwhelmed by even the idea of looking at my systems, I don't know where to start, I don't want to have to think about it, that's a good place to start and get professional recommendations and an action plan custom built for you and your business and how your brain works. And then if you are looking to overhaul, let's say you're moving from Honeybook to Dubsado, you're seeing some of these cool Dubsado things and you want in, then I also offer custom builds. So that's more often for those bigger projects. We're switching tools, we're moving into a CRM, we're moving into a bigger CRM, we're doing whatever. I want a full build and ClickUp. Those custom builds are the place to do that.
So good. So good. You heard it, everyone. If you're moving from Honeybook to Dubsado,
you know where to find me.
Obviously, I'm biased. I love Dubsado, so I will speak of them highly forever. But anyway, okay, thank you so much for just like everything that you've shared today. And obviously, you have so much to offer. So for those of you listening, go ahead and check out all her work, and we'll see you next week.